Hello and welcome to part 5 of The Illusion of Reality. If you have been with us along our journey of the 5 parts of our progressively building and very exciting journey, welcome. If you are just joining us, let me encourage you to go back to the very beginning, the introduction, and the first 4 parts in order to get a proper picture of what exactly is being said and what is being built towards. As has been stated previously, the illusion of reality, the visitor, and they walk among us are all taken out of actual case files from all over the world. People that we have worked with, experiences that we have validated, and people who have found freedom from bizarre, strange, and horrific enslavement, both by the supernatural world and unfortunately by this world. There is so much abuse in this world, so much pain and suffering, and so hard to find. It is so difficult to get the help because of the scientific and technological community, even the religious community, that does not have a comprehensive understanding of the parallel worlds that exist today. We trust as you move through part 5 of The Illusion of Reality, you will get a deeper understanding of your world today, of what could and most likely is impacting you and your family. And it will cause you to have a hunger and a desire to open up your understanding and your mind, to set aside your personal biases, and to pursue truth and freedom at all costs. Now, sit back and listen and enjoy, learn, discern, and be ready for part 5. We entitle it Counting the Cost. I arrived at Dr. Y's home a few minutes early, a few minutes before 7. I sat outside the big closed iron gates, attempting to gather my scattered thoughts and to calm down my emotions. It was a beautiful, crisp night. The moon was so full, hardly any clouds in the sky. The majestic shadow of the satellite dishes scattered throughout the property of Dr. Wise provided a stark contrast against the calmness and peace of earth and the intrusion of the human and its advancement towards domination. What does Dr. Wise really do, I wonder, with such extensive knowledge? Equipment that the average person would never be able to handle, much less understand. What does he do? And why is he so secretive? However, before I could dwell on either issue to a great extent, the huge iron gate began to open automatically. As I approached the huge, extensive double doors of Dr. Wise's home, it opened, and there he stood. "Come in, dear sir. Please, come in." As we entered the room where we had been before, with the big table sitting there, where we first met, Dr. Wise disappeared immediately into the back room while I seated myself. He quickly returned with a small handheld device, a notepad, and a cup of fresh coffee, I assumed. Would you care for some fresh coffee, sir? I just brewed it." "Why, yes, of course, Dr. Wise, that would be great. I appreciate that." He quickly returned with my coffee, a nice tray of compliments, and even some cookies. I have been expecting you. I've been expecting your visit. Oh, really? Hmm. I had to sense you kind of dismissed me and any possibility of seeing me again. No, not at all, dear sir. And I apologize if I gave you that impression from my demeanor. I know that my body language often radiates my intenseness and my intense commitment to this most important subject and this assignment that I feel responsible for while on earth. Yeah, I guess I tend to present myself as somewhat rude, and I can be irritating and probably downright intolerable at times. I do ask your forgiveness, sir, if I presented myself in any such way. Oh, that's fine, sir. I tend to rely upon people's facial features too much anyway, as if it's a representation of their internal thoughts. I shudder to think sometimes what mine look like. I do not want to take up any unnecessary time, sir, and I appreciate you willing to see me. I want to get straight to the point. I pulled out my list of questions, unfolded it, placed it neatly before me on the table. May I address some concerns that I have since the last meeting that we had together? I have accumulated some written concerns. Of course, sir. Please do. Well, sir, my first concern is, why have you chosen me to consider discussing such, from what I gather, deep, important national, international matters? Looking at the handheld device that he had, I assume it was some type of tablet or phone, he began to immediately press buttons. A few moments he was lost. It was like I lost him completely as he stared, and you could see his mind working as his fingers pressed the buttons. He intently seemed to study the screen and its contents. Well, to answer your question, sir, your question reflects the very heart of the entire matter of why you are here and why I agreed to see you a second time. I assume it will not come to you as any surprise that before we met, I had already thoroughly investigated your background, your childhood, your parents' childhood, their backgrounds, your life choices, your training, your failures, and your successes, your marriages, your religious beliefs, and your affiliations. Does that disturb you, sir? Looking directly at me, he asked. Not at all, sir. I expect maybe earlier, a few months, if you had asked me that, yes. But with all the surveillance and what I might add, an international level of interest you seem to show, I fully expected as much from you. However, that still does not address my question, why me? Well, the nature and the security of what may be shared here demands a person to be open. Someone who has been exposed to life from various philosophies and perspectives. In other words, dear sir, I do not need a narrow-minded religious zealot who comes to me ready to protect his precious comforts and worldly interests, his philosophies, and his self-centered goals and needs. I don't need that, and that wouldn't do at all. Does this seem too critical for you, sir, or too rash? Well, if you had asked me this question just a few years earlier, yes, I would have said absolutely yes. And at the place where I was then, that would have been correct. But asking me that today, 21st century, at this place where I am, no, I am very much in agreement with your assessment, Dr. Weiss. Precisely. Precisely, sir. Precisely. And you, dear sir, have experienced the necessary life ingredients to open your heart and mind, should you choose to the strange, mind-boggling things of which I need to share with you should we decide to proceed. Well, may then I ask another question on top of that? Yes, of course. In fact, what you're asking now is precisely what I must reveal at this stage of your dialogue. It is in fact a prerequisite before we can move forward at all together. So, allow me to lay out before you, sir, the somewhat developmental format, if I may. More coffee? Oh, yes, please, thank you. Well, Dr. Wise leaned back. To begin with, your pre-birth and your early development, years of foundational trauma have placed you exactly where you need to be for the type of challenge you will face with me. You, dear fellow, are in all aspects a product of a dysfunctional home environment, and I say that very gently and appreciatively. Are you not? I nodded my head. No need denying that. He obviously had done his homework, and what I could remember, that's certainly true. What you seem to be aware of so far are these factors. Both parents were alcoholics, but what you're not aware of, or maybe the significance of what I'm going to point out, is they were what we call alternating trauma sources. Excuse me, sir? Dr. Weiss, could you repeat that? I don't think I understand your term, alternating trauma sources. Well, let me explain then. Alternating trauma sources, dear sir, are what you most unlikely are aware of that are my specialized training areas in my particular forte. You see, I deal with mind programming or manipulation, as you would say. The old-timers would call it mind programming. There are a group of people, and there are many, in the world under various governments and scientific agencies and technological outreaches that know how to program the human mind, and I'm speaking far deeper and more advanced than hypnotism. So let me explain alternating trauma sources, and let me focus on your mother right now. One of your parents, your mother, was what is often referred to as a binge alcoholic. Was she not? I nodded. A distinction that says she could function for periods of time doing fine and suddenly completely reverse without any warning and have a full-blown alcoholic episode of drunkenness. This drunkenness or stupor she would go into could lay her up for days, weeks, or even months, during which time family, home, everything stops as far as she's concerned, except to get the next drink. Once again, dear sir, I am not trying to be cruel with you, but in order for us to move forward, we have to be completely frank with one another. Are you in agreement? I nodded, in agreement. During such horrific, unstable, emotionally charged, psychologically mind-programming periods with your mother, the family is subjected, any family, in fact, that has this situation, is subjected to the unpredictable periods of rage, anger, physical blackouts by the person who's the alcoholic, forms of delirium, and even insanity, or at least behavior that appears to be insanity. They will go against their basic instincts of a good person. The house will go from clean to absolutely filthy. Food will disappear. They will buy the alcohol at any cost. Children will hardly make it to school if they are cared for at all, and the alcohol becomes all-consuming. You, dear sir, being the youngest in your family of 4, experienced much of this during your most impressionable years of development, the first 7 years, I'll say, including her pregnancy and her conception of you. Oh, Dr. Wise, excuse me just one moment. I'm already getting a bit overwhelmed at the details of your intimacy and your familiarity with my background, things I don't even know. I find it hard to believe, sir, that you know so many intimate details of my life, my conception. I mean, I understand that you were a few years older than me, but how is that possible? You seem to even be aware of more details than I remember. The scope of your familiarity with my family, my interactions with that family during my early years, my early childhood struggles, my mind. Oh my goodness, would you care, sir, to explain how you know so much about me? Well, sir, the point in a relationship, I can only say where we are at this moment, that there are those of us in the world who are assigned, and it's made our business, to oversee particular people and families like your own, and to monitor and be involved in the development of a child from conception forward for interests other than their own. Sir, I might add that your entire life has been scrutinized, monitored, and, yes, manipulated, and to a degree even directed and guided by unseen forces. And make no mistake, you are not alone in such unfortunate situations and enslavement. It is done all over the world. But it occurs more in America and Europe than anyone would imagine because of its success. It's like a stealth plane. It operates smoothly, completely, flawlessly, and is virtually undetectable. Well, my mind was completely frozen, locked. I was unable to process any further. It was as if I knew I was seated directly before Dr. Wise and I could see his mouth moving, but it was also as if I were in a tunnel far, far away, looking at him sitting at the table talking to me. As I already said, I had a deep growing feeling before I came here tonight that after tonight's meeting, my life would never be the same. Never. And you know what? I was right. Absolutely correct. Dr. Wise abruptly left the room as fast as he came, and I sat stunned, shocked. So this is the beginning.